if you were not in LA, do you find that you as a manager and the success you've had in the industry could be at the same level?
No.
Really?
I definitely had to be in LA to achieve what I've built so far.
Do you see that changing in the future? In what
Yes,
way?
I think as the industries like move to Miami and New York and the major other cities, like I think opportunities will present themselves to people. But coming up in the era that I did, when like the creator economy was booming, Instagram was booming, Vine and TikTok, like the circle that I was connected with were like, the top Viners who like then became the top TikTokers and Instagrammers. So like I was pretty connected in that, and I think that helped like me build my community of clients that I wouldn't have access to if I lived anywhere else, because that whole culture was here. And I still don't really think that culture is in New York or somewhat Miami now, but
I talk about it a lot with friends back home being from Toronto. And it's always, to your point, the industry has changed in the sense that someone can't have a thriving business living in
totally.
some random town.
Yeah.
But I think to your point, what you realize here, it's almost like that. I don't know if it's like serendipity factor is the right word, but you could walk into someone on the street and that person could be part of the next move of your career. Whereas in the smaller town,
By the way, that's happened to me. Like, that's how I got my first big client. I met someone on the street in Fairfax, and my friend's like, "Oh, do you know who that was?" And I was like, "Oh, I have no clue who that was." She's like, "That's the vice president of Kanye's record label." And at the time, Kanye was kosher. And that's how I signed Tiana Taylor, who was like my first big client.
hang on, go into that story. That's super cool. So you see her on the street. Your friend is like,
Like this guy on the street. I'm with one of my
yeah,
girlfriends.
yeah.
And I just shoot this shit with everyone. I think like when you aspire to be a manager or be in this industry, you have to stay open. And I was just always open to anything and anyone that I was connected to. And I was just very enthusiastic in this encounter with this person, and she had known him, and I was just kind of bouncing the energy around, and we walked away, and she's like, do you know who that was? And I was like, no. Like, and then she ended up telling me, and we had dinner with him that night, and I had sent him a paper that I had wrote on Jay-Z's career. It was a
Can you send that to me?
Yeah. It was like a 50-page
Please.
paper that was published on Jay-Z's career that I had wrote in college. And I said he was successful based on his brand partnership strategy. Anyways, he had read it. I sent it to him. He loved it. And then he introduced me to 2 clients. And that was 8 years ago. And I still work with Tiana Taylor today. I'm looking around because my computer is going to die. Oh, it's right here. Sorry.
Take time. Take your time. Take your time.
Yeah,
Take
so
your time.
people on the street, it's a real thing. I bump into creators all the time. That's how I built my whole business.
So interesting. You know what it reminds me of is working in this influencer marketing world that I'm in at the moment. You talk with a lot of these brands, and the brands are, oh, give me metrics. How to identify like the right creators? And I don't think you actually can from metrics. It's like you need to have that conversation with that person, go into who they are, their ethos, where they want to go long term. And that's like you can't scale that. But that's kind of where that magic happens. And it's kind of what you're telling me here, which is so cool to hear.
Oh, yeah. Like, I always tell people, I'm like, we have so much success because I know my clients so well. Like, I spend so much time with them, talking to them, that like when I speak to a brand, it's not just like, oh yes, he's the top growing channel in 2022. He has this many views on this many videos. It's like, no, he is creative. He comes from a good family. Like, he has so much integrity with like I can just speak so authentically about them. I was like, like giving backgrounds about how they grew up, their family, like what their parents do for a living. Like, I just know so much, so it paints a story. And like storytelling is what we're doing here, right? On social media. So it's really important for managers just to know their clients. And I think that's why we've seen management companies in the creator space have so much success versus the big agencies, because the big agencies really lack that connection because they have to move at scale, and like they don't have the capacity or time to really build those true relationships like a manager can. And that's also not their job, but I think that's why they've had a disadvantage in the digital space.
Okay, you talk about building relationships. So then how do you go about building relationships with your talent?
I have such an unconventional approach to the way I run my business. And some people might argue with me, some people might say it's great. I don't care. I don't believe in contracts. I believe in handshakes. Like, my word is a contract because I will always fulfill my word. And if I say I'm going to work hard for someone, like, I will do that. And I think that's part of my relationship building is I don't ever want to lock someone into an agreement. I want it to flow. And I believe in like taking things one step at a time. It's like anything. It's like a new friend. It's like you have to check in with them. You want to you have to build a rapport. And I think that's the same thing in a working relationship with talent. It's like, it's really taking that time to have that trust. Like, you have to build that trust and they have to know that you're working for them. So I constantly check in, not too much, but like, we DM, we text, we call, we FaceTime. It's like they become part of your life. And for me, after doing this for so long and then finally having my own company, I'm really able to choose the people that I believe in. So all of this is like, it feels, while it's very professional, it also feels very much like a family. And like, we're not a big company. And I think that's the beautiful thing about having my own thing. It's like we can run it like very clean and processes, and we're very organized internally. But like with our clients, it's very like, it feels very not forced and it feels natural. So it's like, and if it doesn't work, you move. Like for me, it's like, I'll move on. And I think I'll tell someone like, listen, I don't think I'm the best manager for you. Someone else could probably do a better job. Like for me, it's always about them and making sure we're making the best decision for their career. And then, I don't ever want to tie someone up if someone can do a better job. Like I just spoke to someone the other day and she was in sports. And I'm like, listen, I don't really know that much about sports. Like, maybe someone else would be a better fit. So I think it's just like being honest and communication.
See, the interesting thing to me is you come from the music industry, which is so buttoned, so processed. It's like you can't change, you can't break rules. Maybe now's a little bit different with TikTok and such, but labels, gatekeepers, you can't break rules. Everything's set in stone. Now you come to this model that's a lot more open and fluid. What made you go to that model? What made you think like that when you came up in the environment that I would have expected you to continue on and continue to take that through?
I think I hit a roadblock when I first started my company, 2017. I was working with really big artists like Tory Lanez and like the Post Malones when I first started, like those type of artists. And I, at the time, was talking to brands, securing relatively really great and financially lucrative opportunities, but I wasn't able to close the deal. And I was like, I need to reevaluate how I'm spending my time because it's not translating into revenue. So I pivoted my whole business in 2018 and I built a digital management company. And I still have like this list of celebrities and musicians that I work with, and I still bring on selectively musicians that I believe in a brand management capacity, but no longer am I solely focusing just on music because I wasn't having success. And I was like, okay, I'm not really happy and I'm not making enough money to support the growth of my business. So I really had to reevaluate what I wanted to do and how I wanted to utilize my connections. And I knew I was always working with creators, but it wasn't at the forefront. And then I was like, wow, if I'm the manager and I work with creators directly, we can really make some magic happen and build household names. So it was like taking my formula and applying it to the creators.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I've been reading the history of HBO, and they say that, or one of the lines was when they were looking for writers and they were looking for talent to sign and create films and TV shows, it was we were looking for people who had played in the traditional system and knew what rule they wanted to break, and allowed them to go break that rule. And I feel like that's exactly what you did, going from music to Made by All Now, which is so cool to see.
Yeah, and the name was Music Brand Agency when I first started. And I wanted to keep the initials, so it all really connected in the end.
Having now run your company for quite a while, how important is a name for a brand?
It's just the energy, right? Like for me, it honestly didn't matter from a financial perspective, but from like a place where I felt so proud of it, and like it mattered to me personally. I don't think anyone else cared like externally, but I do get compliments on the name. Like when we have like our events, we throw one big party every year and it's so fun, and we have like a step and repeat, and we have like the branding, and we have the hats. Like financially, no, but from a brand building perspective, yes. And like you want to be proud of what you're building. And I was so patient with finding a new company name that for 2 years I was like, I didn't even work in music, and my company was named Music Brand Agency, and everyone still took a chance on me. Like all my creators, all the brands, like it didn't matter, you know? So I thought that was like, it's really interesting to look at that.
You say at that point in time, those creators, those artists took a chance on you. Why did they take a chance on you?
You know, I think it's like, I have such a desire always to achieve such greatness in this space. Like I just have like dreamed about it. And I think when you meet someone who sees the potential in you, you can see the potential in them. So I think like I had early success with some musicians, so I had a track record, right? Like I wasn't like coming to these people without having other successes, but I just think like it was a mutual feeling. And I remember though, like even Tiana, like when we first met, it was like that mutual understanding with her parents and her, that like they felt it, that I was gonna do my best, right? To deliver cool stuff. And no more than that. Like, and I think once you bring something in and it snowballs, like, yeah, I think it's a feeling.
So I was listening to a couple podcasts that you were on previously, and you said something about your early days related to fashion bloggers. And I was very excited no one else dove into this because I want to dive into this. You talked about how you found the Weeknd through fashion blogs. As a Canadian, as a music head, as just a curious person, tell me about how, why, what did you notice from fashion blogs? What were they saying that you went, oh shit, like we really have to look at this person?
The hit of the internet. That's so. First off, I'm so happy you brought this up and you heard that and like captured it, because I was such a consumer of social media like back in high school. Like all these people were like shooting pictures, street style pictures, and posting them on Tumblr. And I would eat it up. Like I'd find all these cool people from Canada, and it would just be like their outfits and then like cool photos and like their playlists. And one of the playlists had The Weeknd, and it like, and you're like growing up in New Jersey, from where I'm from, or any small city, and like you have access to see what other people are doing in other cities. This is before everything. So it was like such an eye opener to me. And like that's the time that I was like consuming Jay-Z and like the hip hop culture and like this street culture of fashion blogging. It was like this cool mixture of energy that like really inspired me and built this like understanding as like, oh, I'm a consumer of media, and like then eventually coming full circle, I'm gonna be a contributor and help propel this whole industry forward. Like it's such a crazy like, you know, connect, like 360 connection, however you want to say it.
Is there a specific feeling that is common when you meet a talent, whether you meet or hear or watch a talent for the first time, that tells you, oh shit, like this is someone that's going to blow, or this is someone that's going to have longevity, or this is someone that is super underrated? Is there something inside that you can point to?
I get this, like, I think I recently just signed someone who I'm so excited about, and just meeting him and then sitting down with him and talking to him, like, he has so much light, and like he is so much enthusiasm that it's like almost a magnetic field to me, where I like radiate it back, and I have like pure excitement. Like with my clients, when they call me, I'm so excited to talk to them. Like it's just a feeling of like, I can't explain it more than like I feel their inner light, and I'm like kind of blown away by it, and it's like just pure joy. And it's a feeling that I love. Yeah, it's like I've seen it a lot with my clients that I sign. You're just blown away by their true talent.
Yeah. There's someone I know in the creator space who is very young, but has done a phenomenal job at managing talent, running incredible brand deals in around like the live streaming space. And when he came on the pod, maybe it was a year or so ago, I asked him like, what do you look for in talent? What are the identifiers beyond metrics? And he's like, it's a feeling. And I was like, okay, fine, but go further on that. Like, how do you know it's something? He goes, no, the talent I've found has never been when I'm searching for it. It's always just been, to your point, a consumer of media, and it'll pop up and automatically. He's like, that's it. I don't even have to think about it twice. Can you relate to that?
Yeah, you know, I study Kabbalah, and my Kabbalah teacher always says the biggest blessings happen by the way. Like, nothing happens when you're searching for it. Like, think about anything that's ever stayed in your life. It always happened in a backdoor way. Like, even like meeting all my clients that I can think of in my head, these moments, it happened by the way. It wasn't like I was there and I was searching for it. Like, these blessings come when you're not expecting it. And that has happened with almost everything in my life.
I want to go back to the Weeknd for a second. In that podcast where you spoke about it briefly, you said that you tried to bring him into Interscope, or you tried to bring the name to Interscope.
No, I tried to bring it to my company. I was an assistant at the time.
Got you. In that situation now, with everything you've learned and everything you now know, what would you have done differently to pitch the Weeknd? Or what would you have done differently to pitch the people that you were working with to try get them to see what you felt?
So I gotta clear this up. So my bosses
Sure.
at the time were in traditional celebrity endorsements, and
Got you.
I was working for them. So their attention simply wasn't on digital at the time, and they just didn't care about musicians. So for me, those were my two passion points and verticals. So when I was bringing them clients in the space, they simply didn't care. It was their business. They had different passions and interests. So I think they would give me a little to keep me intrigued, and then they'd be like, no. But listen, they also taught me everything I needed to know to get to the place I am today. So it's like, you know, I'm so grateful for the experience, but they just simply didn't care, I don't think, until I had to be like, you have to care. Like, this artist is so big. And they came around, and we ended up working with him for a little bit of time. It wasn't anything crazy, but we had secured a deal or two. I don't think they ever went through, but you know, I don't think I could have done anything differently, and I still would have done what I did. Like, I remember they said no to that happening, or a meeting happening, and I went home early that day as an assistant, and I went to the meeting with the Weeknd's manager, Sal, and I remember I just acted like an agent, you know. I was very nervous, but I knew it was an opportunity, and you have to seize those.
What do you mean by act like an agent? How should an agent act?
Just the confidence, like, of not being an assistant. I think when you're an assistant, like, they tried to keep you down. When I was an assistant, they would try to keep me in my place because I was so excited to sign talent, make deals, and they're like, no, you need to be here now so you can learn the foundation skills. And looking back, it was the most important time of my career, because I always wanted to run before I could walk, and I needed that time to like really like I move so fast, like text, emails, like if you it's amazing what I could do in like an hour, how much I can achieve, but I only got there because of the years that I had on my boss's desk. And my boss at the time, she still is incredible. She was so sharp, and I studied her emails. I studied the way she spoke on the phone, and I ate up everything she did. So I think that time is important, and I always tell my girls and my staff, like, this time is pivotal. If this is what you want, like, you need to make the most of it. Like, you get in what you get out. Like, that's the saying, right? What you put in, you get out. So I always say that.
It sounds like everything you're saying to me here is so applicable on the creator side, on the digital talent side. And then you speak about the value of relationships. When you're meeting someone for the first time, outside of, I think, the intangible that you and I were talking about, like you can't explain, but there's just that feeling. Outside of that feeling, what else are you looking for in someone?
I really just like want to see their vision. I want to see how big they can dream, because if they're thinking in a limited capacity or they don't have that desire, I really don't want to work with someone who doesn't want to be the best. And I think I can tell right away now that attribute specifically, but also like I like to just get a feel for them, how they like, what they care about, what their passions are, how they spend their time, like how they come up with their creativity. Like all of that is so important. And I think as I grow my business and I've just brought on a new manager to the team, and she's signing people, it's like a lot of creators like don't prioritize their business as we prioritize our business for them. And I think it's like such an energy match. Like there's creators you see who have great followings, but they're not on the other end of things. They're not responding super quick to our texts. Like my clients who work and have thriving businesses are on it. Like they answer our texts, they sign the agreements, they answer our calls. Like they're working just as much as us. And I always tell our new clients, like, we can only work as fast as you'll go, right? Like we can only do as much as you create. Like we can't bring opportunities out of thin air if you're not like also driving on the other side, the content piece and like creating these things. Like our job as a manager is to capitalize on what your foundation is. And like I look to build that foundation for them stronger, but they have to really like it's a mutual thing in terms of like work.
You talk about how there's some creators, or you're noticing sometimes today that like they're not putting in as much work, let's say, as you and your team are putting in. Do you think is it a time period thing? Is it a short form video thing? Is it a TikTok thing? Like, what do you think is the impetus for that behavior, or that identifier that you're realizing right now that maybe some creators aren't putting in as much work as you and your team are?
No, I think it's all situational, and I don't like to generalize creators or people. I think it's just like what they're going through, if they're ready for that next level of their career. And sometimes you think you are ready, but you're just simply not.
As a management company, I've heard two different schools of thought. I've heard, one, it's important to have a thesis or like a through line around every client or every talent that you work with. And then there's the other side where it's more like that investor mentality. No, diversify, work with a bunch of different people so you're in and around a lot of different information. Where do you and Made by All sit?
I think it's interesting because if you look at like a DBA, right? Like they're like very female focused in lifestyle and beauty, and they have a niche and they're really good at it, right? For me, I never wanted to define myself as one thing. And I sign creators and talent that I believe in, that I truly believe in, and I want to work with them. And we don't have like one vertical or space that we do. And I think for me, every relationship that I build, it helps. It helps everyone. in some capacity. It leads to one thing that leads to another, and they all connect. And I think like diversification of talent for me, like, yeah, it keeps me really excited. Like I represent a world-renowned energy healer, and we recently like brought him to Soho House, and we just got him he's leading a trip in Egypt with the Egyptian consulate. Like there's so many things you can do, and if you think outside the box, like, and I just believe in him so much because he's healed me, and I've seen him and his work, and I just want to work with good people and people who have a desire to change culture and do good for the world. So that's like my driving factor. And yeah, like there's not one thing.
I like that a lot. I think there is like that last part, you just want to work with people that are trying to change the world or trying to do things that are essentially legendary, which is really, really cool. And I think that's the benefit of this space is the fact that it is so open. Like anyone can be that creator. And then it's like a science creator, a fashion creator. Like you can disrupt or you can make a real impact in any space. I'm going back to past interviews I was listening to with you, and you spoke about how when you're working with a creator and the importance of a creator building a business, it starts with the community, and it's who you're engaging with and why. Or who's engaging with you, who's engaging with you and why. Why for you is that so important? Why is community first so important to look at?
Well, community is just really like, if you look at life in general, like our community is our entire life, right? Like your community is your circle, it's your family, it's who you engage with. And like creators have the opportunity to build a really big community and reach a lot of people. So, it's so important because someone could have 20 million followers and someone could have 1.5 million followers, but the 1.5 million is more engaged and has a true community than the 20 million. And I've seen it so many times. So for me, yes, the numbers are impressive, but if you don't know who your audience is and you don't know like what they care to really pay attention to, you're not going to have as much success. Like our girls who have true community, like we have like 40-page media kits on their ROI. And like me as a manager, I take pride in building those media kits because my job is to summarize and put into, a digestible format for these brands to understand why these people are special and what their community stands for. And like these metrics and decks really say everything along with the content that you see externally. But yeah, community is just, it's everything. It's what fills us up. Like,
I like that. What I'm liking about this a lot, I think we're like 27, 28 minutes into it, is that everything is human with you. Like everything is the connection. It's how do we work as humans, and then how do you translate that into your business model? How do you translate that into being a creator and building a following and then building a business? So it's cool to see that as a through line. But you said 40-page media kit. I need more. Explain a 40-page media kit.
We should sell it. No, I'm just kidding. Like sell the format. I think, again, like not to go too deep into this, but when I was an assistant, like I take a lot of pride in building out client media kits and like making sure the lines were really all straight and like everything looked good visually. And I still take that with me today. And like, yes, I'm not the one all the time making the media kits, but I am like, I'll do the final touches now and give the blessing. But I think it's so important, like for a manager and like a good manager, there's so many managers out there who represent talent, but like, I think what makes people stand apart is like the effort they really put in to build a foundation for their clients. And then like how you communicate who they are to brands, because brands are being hit all the time with, oh, take a look at this person, take a look at that person. But it's like, my job is like, I want to make it as easy as possible for you to understand the value of this person, along with why they're so good. And like, that comes from me speaking about them verbally. And I can also like write that in a text, but these media kits are like, they're just really comprehensive and they're important.
Okay, what's the best way to communicate value to brands?
Depends. Depends. Like, what are they asking? And I think a lot of brands now are metric driven because a lot of the brands want to see ROI, which I totally understand. But then there are brands who care about brand awareness, like the bigger brands, like the P&Gs of the world, the Old Spices of the world. Like they want to have a great piece of content that they can put paid media behind and use as a commercial because they already have such dominance in the market. For them, it's just reinforcement of like that culture relevance that we provide. So I think it's like really understanding the brands, what they want and what they care about, because every brand cares about different things. The more I do this, the more I start to ask these smaller brands, what do you care the most about? Because if your budget is, let's just say $20,000 and you really want to see ROI, then let's really cater like the posting cadence to help achieve that. And let's focus on girls that actually have that strong connection to their audience that will help you get there. Like I no longer want to do deals just to move fast. Like I really like, for me, I want to do a better job of like telling these brands who they should work with and why, because it's so easy to take a dollar and move on. It really is. Like there's so many brands who are just throwing out money, but then they're not happy with the results. And then what does that say about you and your business? It's just, I truly care about every deal we do. So I do always want to be the best partner because word spreads, you know?
So let's say I am a brand and I come to you and I say, hey, I've heard about your 40-page media kit. You guys are like Guinness World Record holders, but I'm looking for someone with influence beyond a following, beyond engagement rate, from everything you know and just who you are as a person. What is the most effective way to communicate to that brand the idea of influence for your clients?
Well, it depends. Like, sometimes it's just very visible, like if their likes are just astronomical or their engagement, or if they're press worthy and there's just like everyone's talking about them in news, and if there's like TikToks being generated about them and you could see how many are. It's like there's so many different ways to measure it. We just started working with a few different comedy creators who are up and coming, but their shares on their videos are just mind-blowing. It's like 100,000 shares for a person who has less than 500,000 followers. It's like I look at these other metrics that really show like, oh, do you see how many people are watching this and then sharing it because they think it's funny? Like, to me, that shows like a different layer of cultural relevance.
What does it mean for an opportunity to matter in your eyes?
It's just like there's so many things that like, oh, you look on and you keep scrolling, right? But like for it to matter, people then talk about it and they like, for that next week or whatever it is that you're able to capture the audience, it's like people are blown away by it. And it's like, that's what matters.
Do you have an example or something top of mind of a client of yours in the past couple of years that you guys went about a collaboration that really, really mattered?
Yeah, like literally everything Tiana Taylor does. Like it matters, you know, like everything she does, she wants it to be a moment. And like we put that energy into it. She does, like her mom does, her dad does, like anything she does, like she's not going to half-ass it. And the campaigns I've worked on specifically with her, like they're just really good and she cares. Like all the Old Spice commercials we've done with her and Iman, like they matter. People care. Her Mac moment, like we're on the other side fighting like we want it to be big as possible. Get her a billboard in Times Square. Like, I'm always on the other side with the brands. Like, even with someone I don't represent anymore, like we had a clothing line drop and I was like, get her a billboard. Get her a billboard in every city. Like, make it, put it in people's faces. So it's like a bigger than life moment.
So cool. So cool. I think there's something so unique about being and working with talent that are so relevant and are creating moments, because I think in today's world, or at least it feels like, anyone can be a creator. So if anyone can be a creator, that's cool, but it doesn't mean that anyone can create that moment. And so being able to create that moment, it feels so scarce. So I think that's why when like I see you talk about Tiana and the things you've done, like you kind of light up, like you get so excited because like that those moments don't happen that often. So it's very, very cool to see.
Yeah, like I appreciate that. And like even like my client Nina Drama, like she has such an aspiration and desire to do such cool shit, and like she worked so hard to get everything that she has achieved, and she's really climbing her way up into the UFC franchise, and she's like in just a short amount of time is like the most talked about creator at the UFC. And like we're doing a capsule collection with them. She's the host of Power Slap. Like there's so many ways for creators to really build in what they dream about. Like who would have, like, Nina's a comedy creator with a fashion background who loves sports and is like putting herself into this conversation of the USC. It's like, it's just so cool. And she's making like such a moment for herself. And it's like, there's so much more to come for her. It's like just so fun to see. And she dreamed it and she made it happen in a short period of time. Yes, we helped with the deal structure, but like that was her.
What's the advice you give to creators who, let's say they have a bit of velocity and they come to you and there's a lot of this inbound and they just want to keep taking deals, but you see for them a really strong branding element in aligning with the right people and maybe being more exclusive to others? Like, how do you approach that situation with creators to educate them, but also allow them to feel like, okay, yeah, we're still going to help, but there's a long-term vision on this?
So it's an interesting question. It's an interesting like conversation, right? Because we're in a space where we have to make money, right? Like this is our jobs. Like this is a business. So, but at the same time, we're building a brand. So we need to be careful about who we align with, if it, because it will affect the long-term business. It really does. So like, just as an example, one of my creators is really like, has a lot of credibility in the skin and beauty space. And because she's had bad acne and she's talked about it openly, and we get a lot of opportunities to work with skincare brands. And we have to be really careful, like that she's not working with too many, and like one might come for less amount of money. It's like you have to just understand the space, and like for her, she tries every single product, and if it doesn't work, she will pass. But there's times where it's like, I don't know where I was going with that, and I don't know if I want to say it now, but yeah, I think it's a conversation, and I think you do have, if you really want to have that trust in your community, you cannot sell out for a quick dollar, and you do need to make sure that the brand works for you. But at the same time, like you might work with 4 different brands in the space, but you ultimately might use all 4. It's just, I don't know what your question was now. Okay.
Don't worry about it at all. Don't worry about it at all. But I think the idea of brand is so important. Like being selective is so important. And I think that
Sorry, it's also an opportunity to be creative though too. Like a lot of my comedy creators, like it's an opportunity for them to be creative and create a good piece of content while making money, honestly. And I think if you're a content creator versus an influencer who creates content, there's different levels of what you can do and what you shouldn't do. And that's a whole nother conversation. But like if you're speaking to someone as like, this is my experience, this is why I like it, this is why I think you'll like it, as opposed to here's a funny piece of content that I took a lot of time to be creative with for your entertainment. It's totally different.
Yeah. When creators come to me and they say, hey, like with #paid, we want you guys to help us get more long-term deals. I think every creator, every digital talent wants long-term deals, but it feels like there's kind of from what you were talking about, there's necessary steps to slowly check off to like eventually get that long-term deal. How do you think about helping your creators get the long-term deal? Like what are the things that have to be checked off so that you're in a position for your clients so they really can get that so-called long-term deal?
By the way, that's always the goal, and it needs to be communicated by the manager to the brand that like that's the priority as well, and that we're willing to forgo like other brand competitors and work with you in a long-term basis. But you can't say that without working with them in a one-off capacity, really. Like unless the person's like truly a fan and like they've created so much organic content around that brand already, it's hard to like just jump into a long-term ambassadorship. Don't get me wrong, sometimes that exists, but like you still have to try the brand and like have a true affinity. Like there's a lot of supplement brands that do multi-month partnerships that are awesome, but like I'm talking about like the year-long ambassador programs. Like we work in a year-long ambassador program with Old Spice for my client Adam W. And that's like, I think we're in our 4th year. But that didn't start out that way. Like we did like 10 one-offs, or like we did 3 posts at a time or 1 post at a time. And it's like we built that rapport so they really trust him and they know him. The whole executive team. So it happens over time. And like, I think you need to show your loyalty just as much as the brand needs to show their loyalty. And I think like a lot of my clients who have success in the long-term space, like they don't look at it as a contract. They look at it as a relationship. And like I never force this on my clients, but a lot of the time when you over deliver for a brand, they want to work with you again. Right? So it's like the people who have the mindsets of like, oh, it's three stories and that's all I'm going to do. It's like, okay, well then you can't expect so much also on the flip, like if they did well, great. And I'm not ever going to tell someone to do extra work. It always comes from my client's willingness to want to communicate that full story that translates to more.
So it sounds like it's on, let's call it's on the manager to continuously talk to and continuously pitch that brand that you're partnering with to say, hey, we want that longer term. Like we want to work towards this longer
moments,
term.
Right? Like, hey, I'll be like, hey, my client's going here. I saw you're activating. Like, is there anything we can do? Can they walk the carpet? Can they come to your event? Or what do you have slated for the next 3 months? Like, here's what we're doing. Like, where is it align? Or like, it's a constant like communication stream. But it's funny, and sorry, I don't want to derail too much, but in the creator space, a lot of times brands have these agencies that just work on like per campaign basis. So they'll come to us, like, let's just say L'Oreal, like they'll come to us through an agency and be like, we have budget for this one video, right? So it's like, you can't go back to that agency to then go back to the brand and be like, they want to do a multi-month partnership. Like they're only contracted to help L'Oreal with this campaign. So that conversation isn't always fluid on the manager side. So it's important to know who you're speaking to and what their objectives are. Like this agency isn't trying to create a multi-month partnership for Adam because they're not being paid for that. They're being paid to execute this one campaign. So I think that's important to also think about. But when you do have the opportunity to talk to the brand directly or an agency that's like a true agency of record for the brand, you just have to know who you're speaking to. And then like also it's about your client really showing that they love the brand authentically and like want to work with them by over delivering or being thoughtful. Like my clients are so thoughtful with the brands that we work with and have really good relationships with. Like I have one client that will like personally write notes to them and we'll share them. Like if she wants to communicate something, it's nice.
It sounds like it's relationship management as much as it is content and distribution performance.
100%.
I like that.
Thanks for summing up my whirlwind.
That's why I'm here. I'm here to listen, and I'm here to not say that much, not say that many things. I wanna ask you something, and maybe I get canceled for this. I'm not gonna get canceled, but in the world of TikTok, where over the past 3-4 years, there's been immense growth on followers, and that follower doesn't, and the value of followers, that number of followers really doesn't translate into the amount of views or like the relevancy that you have at a given time. If a creator, let's say, rises to 500K over 5-6 months and their price hypothetically is like 10K a post, and now their views aren't like, for the past 3-4 months, views aren't there, they're not that relevant, they're not doing that well, the audience isn't there. From a manager perspective, is the advice, we got to drop the price? Or do you always hold price at the same? Like, how do you value that level of like peak and longevity and relevancy as it relates to working with brands?
That's such a good question. Wow. Yeah, I think it's important to look at like all of their platforms because maybe TikTok isn't performing as well, but their YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram are popping off, right? And then like you might do a small discount to their TikTok because the viewership is down, but overall like they still have to pay people to create the content. We still have to pay commission. Like you still have to like there's still so much time, energy, and creativity that goes into it. But yeah, like if the brand's like solely looking to activate on TikTok and the views are down, of course they're probably not going to pay as much, right? But sometimes we'll be like, okay, well, she can syndicate it to her Instagram for the same price. So I think there's just ways to massage it and like make it a win-win for everyone. Like my goal is to get a deal done. It's not to ever kill a deal, right? Like I'm not there to be like this or no. It's like no, like let's work together to achieve, something that you'll be happy with and that my client will be happy with.
Yeah. Imagine that as your branding. You just go counterintuitive to everyone else. Hey, work with me and I promise I will kill your deal. I wonder if that would work.
But like some people like get in there and they're like they don't have an intention of like being a good partner. They're just like we need this and it or no. It's like that's not how it works. Like I feel like there's agents that do that. Like the rate's 100K, we're moving on. It's like okay, well you just lost $90,000.
So true. There's two things left I want to ask. A bunch of creators actually messaged me to say, oh, cool, you have Leanne coming on. Like, I have a couple questions. So I'll leave that for after this question. But one thing I noticed when listening to your past interviews is you're really good at identifying talent, but you're also really good at identifying trends. Like you talked about how like when Instagram came on, you started to notice it. Then fashion bloggers, you started to notice it. And then you went from music to digital talent. I don't know, what's the date today? February 24th, 2023. What is the thing that you're interested in now for the next 5-10 years?
I mean, Leanne as herself, I'm not sure, but
Okay.
being around all my creators, I get a lot of inspiration from them and a lot of, they're always communicating with me. I think Chat GPT is going to be the future. And I think like people are going to utilize that and be able to create content faster. And like the AI that's coming is going to change a lot of the ways people consume and people create. So I think there could be like a shift in TikTok. I think YouTube Shorts is something to definitely prioritize. People's attention is going back to Snapchat. I don't know if I'm not sure what my personal answer is, but I
You're all
know
good.
that
No.
the trends of like content being placed on a lot of different platforms matters.
No, I think that makes sense. I have a business idea for you after related to ChatGPT and your 40 page
Oh yeah, now we're gonna be
media
writing
kit.
I'm very like when I write a bio, I'm very like particular about it. So I think Chat GPT is gonna help us a lot with our bio.
I think you're so right. All right, a couple questions from these creators, and then I will let you go back to your a million texts and a million emails. The first one is a lot more human, so you might really like this one. Is as a manager, how would you advise a creator to structure taking a break?
Oh wow, yeah. Is that the question?
Yeah.
So I recently implemented a morning routine where I don't look at my phone or texts or DMs until 9 a.m. So I wake up at 7 and I have 2 hours to myself. And I came to this routine because I hit a wall of like, I was always just on the second I woke up. I was checking everything and just on until I went to sleep. And it's just so important to create that space for you because in Kabbalah, they call it that spiritual recharge is where like your problems are actually solved. Like you have the time to like work on your self-talk. And like for me, there's so many layers personally, but it's so important to find that space to be creative because that's why you do what you do, right? You have something inside you to express. So I think you should be taking a break as much as you can throughout the day. I'm really like an advocate of this after pushing myself so much and so quickly. I really take some time in the weekends to like chill out. It's actually been hard for me to go from 100 to nothing sometimes, but it's definitely important. And you shouldn't go on vacation. That shouldn't be the only time when you take a break. But a lot of people are just so in love with this space that for a lot of my creators, they just love it so much. It's not really work, but it's still important to have time for yourself.
Like that a lot. As a manager, how do you value exclusivity for your clients?
In what regard?
In terms of if a brand comes and says, cool, we want to work on like, here's this partnership, here's this collaboration, and we want like 6 months exclusivity. Like, how do you, as a creator, value what that exclusivity even really means?
Depends on the category. It depends on the budget. If they're really paying you a good fee for that exclusivity, sure. But we recently came across a deal where they wanted 8 months of exclusivity, but the posting cadence was in the first 3 months. I'm like, like, that makes no sense. Like, why do you want them to be exclusive? They're not even posting for 4 months when they could be creating other content and potentially getting other deals in that category. Like, either we need to shorten the window or we need to increase the budget to justify it, right? I think it matters a lot, especially if this is your business and like you're creating content for a lot of different competing brands. Like, even in like the snack space, like, or like the beverage space, like, you don't just drink soda, one type of soda. If you drink soda, I don't drink soda, but if you do, like, I always look at it from a human perspective. Like, okay, like, yes, Pepsi wants this exclusivity, but it's like, it has to be justified to like what the program is. And I think it does matter.
I like that a lot. Almost trying to run parallel posting schedule with exclusivity, because then it just makes sense within that environment and within the world.
You have to really pay them to be exclusive. And then like also figuring out why they want them to be exclusive for so long, right? Like, what is the fear, or like what is the, like, I try to really understand, like, to negotiate you have to understand the other person's point of view. So it's like, I'll ask these questions, like,
Yeah, no, that's really smart. I like that question a lot. Okay, when should a creator get a manager?
when they can't do it themselves, or like they're trying to like create and they have so much incoming business that like they need someone to help them like manage it all.
Cool. Is there a business case, or is there a case to be made for getting a manager before you can't handle it all?
Yeah, of course.
Is there an indicator that you've seen creators could potentially go off of as to like why they would get a manager much before they can't handle it all themselves?
Yeah, if they just don't know how to monetize their business, but they have a really like engaged audience, for sure, and you just simply you're not equipped to negotiate, or you're not equipped to answer emails, or you're just solely focused on content, and there's an opportunity to monetize the audience and help you bring in different revenue streams. Yeah, absolutely. And listen, there's people who want to be managers too. Like, when I first started, I was trying to work with anyone that like I could. There's just people out there for everyone at every level.
Yeah. What makes a good manager?
Someone who cares. That's like the bottom line, someone who cares. And then obviously there's so many other traits, but I think like having that bottom line integrity and like relationships, in every relationship, like, it will make all the difference. Because if someone just is in it for the dollar or thinks about themselves, like, I have this rule that the second I think about my commission in a deal, it doesn't happen. So for me, it's always about my client and like making sure it's the best deal for them. I think that's just something that I've come across. Like, anytime I'm like, oh, what am I gonna make? No, the deal doesn't happen. So now I move myself, because I'm getting a commission, but I don't need to think about myself. It's like, as long as I'm taking care of my client, I'm indirectly taking care of my business.
Yeah, makes sense. A service business, you're working essentially for, like, with, but essentially for them. So that's where you're going. Cool. Last question. What is the best advice, or what is it, one piece of advice you would give creators in 2023?
Don't get discouraged. Like,
Cool.
if you have like a desire to do something, like, keep going back to that desire and be consistent.
I like that a lot. It's almost like going back to your pocket, knowing why you started in the first place, and keep tapping into that.
Yep.